Hey, good afternoon, MSG. It's an honor to be here today and talking with you guys. I'm joined by Chief Vaden, and happy New Year, happy 2021. So yeah, normally we'd probably kick the year off doing an all call, handing out awards, talking about some things and year in review. But today actually we're going to sit and talk about for those that may not be tracking. In June, the Air Force, the IG, started an independent review of racial disparity. And it was along with discipline, professional development, and career opportunities. And just last month, the report came out. And quite a few of us have read it. And then Chief got back, and Chief came into my office and sat down and said, "Hey, boss, do you want to sit down and talk about this? You want to do a Facebook Live?" I'm like, "I've never done a Facebook Live, or I've done Zoom calls," but I'm like, "Absolutely, Chief. This is important. It's important to us because if you and I, a chief, a colonel, the MSG leadership, if we can't sit down and talk about this, then we can't expect anybody else to. So this is our opportunity to set the stage so that we can continue the conversation on the racial disparity that exists within the Air Force." And so, Chief, thanks for doing that. Thanks for asking me to do it, and I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir. So, you know, this you pointed it out. The report came out just recently, and it started in June for our airmen, for the Air Force, for our society. It highlights things that have been going on for a long time. Some people that have knew me before I got here and things of that nature know that I'd started peeling the onion back on some of this stuff with some other people for a little while now. And this report highlights things that people already know. And I know that our squadrons are already getting after it. Obviously, I was on a sightseeing tour out in Afghanistan, the lovely place out there. So I know I didn't, obviously had a group out there to care, feed, and mentor out there as well, right? So I didn't watch everything that was going on here at the MSG, but I know our squadrons, our teams have been getting after. They've been having conversations, been having the courageous or difficult conversations. And so don't want to imply that squadrons, that you have not been doing this, right? We know you've been getting after it. But this report came out. There was a town hall that Chief of Staff and Chief of Space Operations sat down and did. And I said, you know what, and it happened before the new year, right before the holidays. And so I came in, I talked to the boss. I was like, "Hey, I don't want it to lose momentum and steam, so to speak, for the MSG. Let's sit down and have a conversation about this." And what I will say, this conversation is not going to be me and him sharing our experiences. So you won't have that level. This conversation is not built around that. It's built around what are the next steps? So the disparity report came out. What are the next steps that we can help encourage from the MSG? And I will do some future panels where we will bring some people in, and it'll all be voluntary, where people can share across the group. So squadrons have been doing it. I know we did some stuff at the wing level, but to give an opportunity for our airmen of all grades, uniform, non-uniform, to sit and just chat with me if they want, and chat with their peers, because I think there's the goodness to be had there. So as we kick this off, you'll live stream on Facebook. That's probably how the majority of everybody's watching this. Master Sergeant Heinrichs is our moderator, if you will. So if you have comments throughout our conversation, the Colonel and I will run our mouths for about 20 minutes or so, maybe longer. Y'all know I'm long-winded. And then we'll open it up to questions. So if you're on Facebook Live, type your questions in, and Master Sergeant Heinrichs will get to those. If you get to where the question and answer session, if you will, of this town hall, once we open it up for that, and you'd rather do it live video with the Colonel and I, just dial into the Zoom link that I gave you. So if you're in Facebook land and you're not part of 28 MSG, you don't have that Zoom link. But if you're part of the 28 MSG, then you'll have the Zoom link that came out in your government email. So as we get this kicked off, sir, our conversation, and I apologize, sometimes I'll look at the camera and sometimes it'll be a conversation. Y'all know I'll just keep it real. And it's nothing, there's no disrespect to anybody, but when I have somebody talking to me, I'll probably turn and look that way at times. But sir, what are some of your opening thoughts that you just want to share with the team, with the command teams and the entire team as we talk about racial disparity?
So first off, I had to write some notes down actually. So for those that haven't had a chance to read the report, get out and read it. It's long. There's a lot of numbers in it. But just know it is really in depth. There were, like I said, we started in June and we just finished it, the Air Force did. They looked at all the data they could find. They did a lot of data mining so they could actually show that racial disparity does exist. And we know it, and this shows it. They're not showing causation. We're going to dig into that. DOD, big Air Force, at every level, we'll dig into the causation of it. This was to highlight, yes, it does exist. Fantastic inputs. They looked at 23 different case studies previously. 138,000, I think, somewhere around there. I'm a math guy and my math may be wrong, but they looked at a bunch of about 138,000 inputs to the survey. And I think you said 38,000 pages or 37,000 pages of written comments that we're able to glean out and look at some trends, look at some data, look at some things that we want to be able to highlight and talk about so that we can get after. And the reason we want to do this is probably about 15 minutes after I took command of the MSG, I had a chance to sit down with the squadron commanders and the superintendents and the MSG leadership. On one of the slides I was able to share is kind of my compass of what drives me. And on the very top of this compass is trust. And when I read this report, there are some things that jumped out at me. And one of them was that Black African Americans have the trend was there's trust issues, that the chain of command isn't taking it seriously. The chain of command isn't going to do anything about it. So when we started talking about trust, that really gets to me, and I really want to get after it this year.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And you highlight something really important when we talk about trust. And I want to say it was like 74% of African-American general officers that lack trust in the process. And when I say process, as you know, pointed out to the team, the process of our Air Force level processes. So you could look at things like that and say, you hear terms like systemic is where that would come from, systematically doing things that don't take everyone into account. So we've come a long way as an Air Force as far as making it diverse, but inclusion of that diversity is a whole nother thing. And that's what this report points out to me. And sir, I know we were talking about this before in your office and down here when we were just going over things that we want to make sure we share with the team. If you haven't read the report yet, please read the report. And if you're not if you're one of the types of people that says, you know what, I don't read long documents. It's 150 pages long. It's got some graphs and a lot of words. And you'd say, well, I listen to Audible books. Well, I got you covered. If you can bear with my voice, I've already done that for you. I'll make sure that I tag that in on the link that we share after the video is published when we're done with the live event here. You can go out and listen to it.
We don't know at our level what every airman that comes through the gate or comes out of the dorms, how many rocks they have in that rucksack, how heavy is it? And if it's related to racial disparity, how heavy is that? Because I don't know. And so that allows our squadron commanders to have that sense of empathy, and it allows them to relate as well. And what I'm kind of really charging in squadron commanders, and I know they're already doing this, is take some time. And I know it's time. It's tough to take time. They're already working 48-hour days. And a lot of our folks are working 48-hour days just to get the mission done and take care of things. But the return on investment of taking the time at all levels and really encouraging our flight superintendents, our flight chiefs, our leaders at every level to take the time to get past the surface level questions when we start talking amongst peers, amongst airmen, supervisor, and such, that they can actually dig deeper to find out more than just the stats on someone, but actually ask them, hey, tell me about your growing up. Tell me about what it is here that, that really gets to you, really adds another rock or another weight to your rucksack.
Absolutely. So, we have different conversations at different levels. When I was in Afghanistan, we had them at the squadron level, group level, squadron level, and then at the shop level. So when we've had all these conversations, they are great. It's great to hear other people's experiences, and we learn from that. And that's why I want to continue to do panels. It'll be, like I said, completely voluntary, and I will work those where people can share their story, their experience. And then people that watch that at a later time, or even the people on the panel, can grow from one another as they've gone through these experiences, similar and sometimes completely different. But where what I've seen in my experience, limited experience, right? I've been in for coming up on 20 years now, where those discussions are the most important is at the section or the office level, right? Where it's the me and you that see each other every day, and maybe we don't even know each other's kids' names. If, you know, obviously me and you both have children, but, and there's a lot of different scenarios, if you will. Where did I come from? Where did I grow up? And so while me and you walk into an organization at our level, and I want to speak to people's hearts, again, 100% is what I'm trying to get after here. We walk in, people, like you said, will tell us, yeah, everything's great. You know me, I'll push a little more and ask, but I have to be careful because I'm also 6-foot Sasquatch level, and I'm kind of bigger. And so sometimes I can be intimidating. My personality can be intimidating. So I try to be cognizant of that, but people are only going to tell us so much. But when you're in that shop or you're in that office, so same thing at the squadron level. Your squadron commander walks in, your squadron superintendent walks into the office, and you're not going to get the same level of feedback, if you will, as the staff sergeant, technical sergeant, or the master sergeant in that section, that office, our civilian leaders, from anyone that's in a management or leadership position. You're going to have more in that section or that office. You're going to definitely be a lot more dialed in to the problem than, or a situation, than I am. So also speaking to people that might be experiencing something right now, you might be saying, well, Chief V, we ain't had any conversations. Well, please elevate that up to your chain of command, because those types of things need to be occurring. And I also want to speak to you, and I know I've talked to a couple of you specifically in our group about this. Don't assume that me and the colonel know that there's a problem, right? Yes, I'm a chief master sergeant. He's an 06. He's a colonel. We don't know everything. In case you haven't figured that out yet, we don't know everything. And we don't even know what all is going on in our group. Our group is very diverse in our mission sets. There's a lot of y'all. There's roughly around 1,567, give or take a few people that, you know, based on PCSs and deployments and now the group, that there's no way I'm going to know everything that's going on in that small shop in the back of a communication squadron. I'm not going to know. It's not that I don't care, but we are not going to know. So that's where that things really start occurring, things that you can identify problems. So what would be your advice, sir, to our supervisor, our frontline supervisors? And you know me, I got a full toolbox that I want to talk about, but what would you tell our first line supervisors about those conversations in the next step? So we've advised the commanders. What would be your advice to those frontline supervisors?
So my advice is you got to take the time. For us to be able to see trends, for us to be able to get after anything that we can do process-wise, for the squadron commanders to be able to understand, hey, we've got something going on here, is you got to take the time. The return on investment is huge. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and that, you know, in the soft community, they have a saying that humans are more important than hardware, that our airmen are the most important investment that we have in the Air Force for now and for the future. And I also talk about being very transparent. You know, it's okay to say, hey, I didn't grow up like you, or say, hey, here's how we're getting after something, or tell us if we don't give you the information you need, or we're not giving you some, let us know. So that's another one of the pillars, or one of the on my compass over here on the right hand side, is transparency. I think it's incredibly important for us to be as transparent as we can at all levels. And obviously there's some things that our commanders can't be transparent about, because it does involve certain things when it becomes legal and medical and different things like that. But as the ability to be transparent, I think, helps set the stage to build trust and to be genuine and to be able to say, yes, we're hearing you, we're listening, we're learning, and we're leading. So I think that's probably, if I could give something to our frontline supervisors: listen, learn, and lead. And really, you know, I think you talked about squinting with your ears. Really listen. Really listen to what your folks are saying. And don't try to solve the problem while you're listening. Listen to listen. Listen to understand them. Listen to understand what they're going through. So, Chief?
Absolutely. So when you touch on time, sir, and you said it earlier, and the colonel knows math, and he knows how the days work, and knows how many hours are in a day. When we say things like 48 hours in a day, we know that you are a complete job, and there's some career fields specifically that get overstressed, just by the nature of your work and the elements and conditions in the environment, right? So we know that you're jobbing it. So when you hear, you might be the staff sergeant or a civilian leader at that level as well, like that first line supervisor, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, that's great, Chief V. You can sit there with the colonel and y'all control your own time, and you can sit there and you can have this conversation. But what about me when I've got not enough time to do all the job that I have to do, all the EPRs, decorations, whatever else I'm working on admin wise? on top of that. And then, oh, by the way, you want us to sit and chat. And you're absolutely right. I do want you to sit and chat. And I've grown up in the Air Force. It didn't like they dropped me in as a chief. Just one day I was walking around, they scooped me up and dropped me in as a chief. That didn't happen. So I grew up in the same Air Force or same type of Air Force that you're in. And you can make time for it. What I would encourage the supervisors to do also, when you feel like you're crunched like that, is to ask for that time. And my plea to the commanders would be, listen, like you said, listen to your team, your leaders in the team that say, hey, you know what, boss, I need a little more time. I'll use CE as an example. That's where I grew up. So it's not applicable to everyone in the exact sense that I'm going to describe it, but you can piece it together for your career field. We do everything based on, time. We have to schedule our time for our shops and what we're going to accomplish through all those tasks that we have to do. And I would say, hey, I need 20% of my time, 25% of my time actually for training. And my OPSO was really upset at that. I was a young master sergeant. Actually, I was a master sergeant select. I said, no, I need this time for training. And of course, we didn't use, and I'm an equipment operator, we didn't use all that time for training, right? In the sense of going out and learning how to operate a backhoe or a bulldozer. The majority of that time was sitting around the shop doing computer-based training, i.e. Halo or any first-person shooter game we could come across. That would be going on sometimes as a cookout, but always conversation, right? And so the teammates that I had on that team, we grew closer. And I want to encourage the supervisors, it doesn't happen overnight. So don't feel like you have to solve all problems at the get-go. But when you say, I like how you say, listen, learn, and lead, really listen with your heart too. Try to put yourself in that person's shoes or boots, as we say in the military, and see it from their perspective. You have never gone through this. It doesn't matter whether you're the same ethnicity or not. You've never gone through the exact same situation that another human being's gone through. Even brothers and sisters, I went through things and they interpreted it and went through it differently than I did. Some of the horrific stuff that I went through as a kid. But what I'm saying here is try to see it from their perspective. And again, this happens at the first line supervisor level, and the technical sergeant, and I say first line, some technical sergeants are first line supervisors as well, but that immediate leadership chain, if you will. So I'm not leaving the civilians out. So you're in that realm as well, the first line supervisory leadership level. And when you talk about building trust, that takes time. But trust can also, and credibility can be destroyed in an instant. So we need to think about what we're saying at all times. So I'll give you a quick example, if I may, sir, to kind of highlight my point. So when I was downrange, it was not a unit here. I was downrange, and I'll leave the unit designation off. I went in to do, and it wasn't even an MSG type. The group I was part of was an AEG, so I had a lot of different types of AFSC. So I went in this organization, about 380 strong, and go in there, and I'm just hanging out in their break room, and they were talking about racing dirt bikes. And they were like, hey, I don't even remember the location, and I shared this with you the other day. I went over here to this place, and the person said, oh, that must be that white privilege. And I said, what did I just hear? No. I was like, Caleb, you just hearing stuff. That was not said. And then another example was given. Oh, it must be that white privilege. And these were all Caucasians that were talking about this. And I look over, and there's two people of color sitting right over here at the break room tables, a little bit spread out, picnic table type stuff, spread out. But I know they could hear me. I know they could hear what was going on. So obviously I pulled them all together, and we won't go into the details of what the conversation that I had. But anybody that knows me knows that we had some conversations. But the reason I bring that up is because we don't all interpret things the same way. You might not believe X, Y, and Z like we talked about in the report, but I want you to listen and just shut your mouth for a second. I know y'all are saying, I wish you do the same thing right now, but just be quiet for a second and listen with your ears, squint with your ears, and listen with your heart, and try to put yourself in that position, right? Because you can destroy trust and credibility so quick with your mouth. You can say stuff, and you can go back and ask for forgiveness, because people know after they've been around you for a while, know that whether you're that type of person or not. But I want you to be cognizant of that. So the things that you say, based on whatever you believe this report or not, if the Air Force comes out with a process that says, hey, we're going to track all LORs, LOCs, what you say in those moments is vitally important. Your leadership can either be, you're going to be empowered through that, or you're going to be cut yourself down. Any thoughts on that, or anything else that you want to share? Because I'll run my mouth forever. So.
Yeah. So I think you hit on an important about the trust, and it can be destroyed. So we're asking we're asking everybody to do this. Just don't go through the motions. You have to be genuine. You actually have to, like the chief talked about, it has to be in your heart. We are in the greatest Air Force in the entire world. We sit here, we look at our right here, integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. And we know we all do that. And so we truly ask you, genuinely be that person who wants to listen, who wants to be empathetic, to actually get to know your airmen. And I know there's a lot of our airmen and our supervisors that are doing that. We don't think you're not. So that's not what we're talking about. But truly being genuine goes a long ways. And just like I said, I have not had the experiences that you've had. Haven't had the experiences a lot of folks have had in the Air Force or just in the world in general. So it takes time and it takes effort, but that's what we're asking our airmen, big A airmen at all levels, to do is be genuinely good listeners, be genuinely good at caring for our airmen at all levels.
Something that you highlighted, sir. So I'm sitting here thinking about it. I give that example of my personality type. So previous boss, she had to let me know about this, right? Because I never saw it in myself. So it was a blind spot. I'm just like, everybody should be happy. We're alive, we're breathing. So this is great, and before COVID, some of y'all know that I was a high fiver. The defenders, they would always try to get me. Like I'd go to high five and they always try to knock me over or something. It was just a unique bond that we have. But anyway, so people know that I'm a little rambunctious. And she pointed out to me one time, she's like, hey, Caleb, and I won't say this person's name or the squadron I was in, but they were like, I think you really intimidated them because you basically chased them. And I wasn't like running after chasing them, right? But I was just still trying to talk. I was still trying to talk and find out what was going on and how they're doing. And they had kept trying to move away from me to get to a safe space, I guess, and essentially like, hey, we'll get out of his way. And so it's a blind spot, is what I'm saying, right? Using a funny little example of making fun of myself and being transparent with you, I have blind spots. So I want to speak to the supervisors' hearts out there. The airman that you're in charge of motivating, inspiring, leading, directing, might not want to come to you based on whatever, right? It might have nothing to do with anything you're doing intentionally, but they might go to, we'll use you as an example, somebody I'm responsible to report on and all the things I just said, maybe feels more comfortable going to the colonel. You have to be okay with that, right? Until you can get to a talking spot. And sometimes people never get to the level where they can really get to know each other and do the human connection that we're talking about. What I want you to not have animosity about that. Right? Understand, first off, we have blind spots. When people expose those blind spots for us, then work really hard to overcome those blind spots. We all have biases. Every one of us have biases. And the sooner you accept that, the better off that you'll be, the better leader you'll be. If you don't accept those, then you're not going to be effective at all. And then you're going to do more damage. So I know, sir, that we've given advice, your advice of what you would do as a squadron commander, or given advice to squadron commanders and the first line supervisors. I know we both have watched Lieutenant Colonel Herndon send it out, Security Forces Commander. So thanks, sir, for sending that out. Some of y'all have probably seen these conversations on Facebook or YouTube. They've been pushed a lot of different places. So Lieutenant General Slife is the AFSOC commander. And so they've had some roundtable discussions. And so again, thanks for the Colonel for sending that out. And I will attach the links to those roundtable discussions. They do a much better job than I do of discussing these types of issues and things. But I know you've listened to those as well, and you took away a couple of points I know you wanted to share. So thoughts on some of the things you've heard other senior leaders in the Air Force share that you want to reiterate to our team.
So I touched on a couple of them. Obviously, General Slife talks about the human capital that we have to invest in. He talks about the listen, learn, and lead portion of it. But when you watch these roundtables they have, these discussions they have, they are brutally honest with each other, and there's some eye-opening moments in there. And what I took out of it is, they tell stories, and I'm not going to repeat the stories because I want you guys to watch these. But where I would never be in the situation that some of our airmen have been in, and I didn't have to take that burden with me when I came in the gate that morning. And we get after things in the Air Force, and all of our airmen are awesome. But when they're carrying those burdens, I think it really can affect our performance, and it can affect our ability to do things. And so, I think another thing I really took out of it is that it's awesome to see senior leaders at all levels getting after this, talking about it. It inspires us to sit and talk about it again. And we see them talk about it. We can talk about it. Everybody can talk about it. We can start doing that. We can do more of it. and that gives us an opportunity to learn and lead.
You know, it was brought to my attention, so I'll be transparent with the team about myself. So it was brought to my attention when I was a senior master sergeant. So I've been doing some podcasts and things on the side, I guess you could say. Obviously, I tie everything into it's an Air Force because that's what I do, and that's what I love. But somebody brought it to my attention, said, "Hey, senior, you should use your platform to talk about." They didn't call it racial disparity; they just called it racism in the Air Force. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like, just what? That happens? So I was just ignorant to it, right? And some people, they can't get to that point where I just shared with you of saying, tell me more about it. Like, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. I've never seen it. I've never experienced it. Help me understand. And then just listen, like we talked about before. So some of our teammates need to get to that level. I'm not saying that maybe necessarily in this group, I just know as humans, I'll say it as humans and airmen, guess what? We're humans. Sometimes we might think and get treated like machines, but we're humans underneath this. That we just have to understand that, you know what? I don't know what I don't know. I need somebody else to, and then that's where I'll talk about put yourself in their position. So anyway, yeah. And then again, as a chief, there was someone on this installation that came to me outside of our group that said, "Hey, I really want to talk about this." And then I did a whole series on it. So I learned a lot. What I'm getting at this is you only know what you know. You only grow up where you grow up. You only experience what you experience. Don't beat yourself up on that. Just be, open with it, open-minded, open-hearted about saying, all right, now I need to listen and learn kind of thing. So I would like to, sir, if I may take this before we open up to questions. We talk about Air Force potentially coming out with processes. What can we do in the here and the now? And I'd like to talk, like I mentioned in your office when we first started having this discussion, is coaching. Right. Some of y'all know that I love football, and some of you may not know and may not be able to associate with that sport. And I do apologize, but if you can walk with me on this and try to understand it from whatever perspective you're coming to this discussion with, of maybe whatever team or sport you've been a part of or seen, or maybe just whatever you can associate it with. And I was a coach. I've been a coach for a long time in football. I grew up playing football. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit bigger of a person, so I played the line. If you're not familiar with football, if you are familiar with football, then you're like, well, you're big, but you're not big enough to play a line, but I was part of a small school. I digress. I will move forward. Where I'm going with this is, as I grew up, I realized I wasn't going to play college ball when I fractured my neck and stuff. And I said, you know what? Well, I definitely want to be involved in coaching. So I coached Pee Wee, and that's awesome. If you ever have a chance to coach kids, it's amazing. But I would watch, and where I'm going somewhere with this, so please bear with me. I would watch the players in practice, right? So associate, I'm not calling our airmen of all uniformed and non-uniformed airmen football players, but I'm trying to make that relation there. So if you think about the supervisors that are growing up in the Air Force right now, my son's in technical training right now. He's a supervisor in training essentially, because one day he will be a supervisor if he continues to stay in the Air Force and serve in the Air Force. And that's another family piece. Don't let me forget. We'll tag that in as well. But so they're growing up in the Air Force. It's like these children that I'm watching, these young men, they're playing football, they're practicing. And then we start selecting people to go on the field. I.e., you're making staff sergeants, you're going to ALS. You're going to get on the field of supervising and leading our airmen, leading our nation's sons and daughters. You pointed out I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second, sir. The most important thing that we have are the human beings serving our military, or well, I should say in the military. I don't want to say that the military is the most important thing. I think it is, and y'all can keep that on the DL. But our humans that serve our Air Force are much more important than F-35 or any other piece of equipment you could throw out there. So we're putting you on the field to do that. And then sometimes, right, you just put this boot on as it fits. We do this number as senior leadership in the squadron, the flight, the shop, wherever. Sometimes we do this and we're like, man, I sure hope they're getting it right out there. And we do it under the guise of not wanting to micromanage. And sometimes there's various reasons why this happens. And not to go into all of those, but I'm getting there. Trust me. When I'm watching football, I don't do that. I pulled those group of players to get on the field, those 6 or however many linemen we're using, and they're on the field. I'm watching their technique. I'm watching them, and I'm not doing it from a way of to micromanage. I'm coaching because I've taught you something, i.e. the Air Force has taught you something as a supervisor. Now I'm watching and helping you. I'll pull them all. We get 3 and out. I'm going to be upset if you missed a block, but you're going to come over to the side. I'm going to say, what happened? Why did you miss? I missed a block, coach. Okay, why did you miss the block? So supervisor, you're a technical sergeant supervising a staff sergeant or mass sergeant. You're in that section. You can see this is where all of it happens. All of it, all of the stuff that we talk about in the Air Force happens at the tactical level. That's where things get done, and that's where things can come off the rails. obviously it can come off the rails at any level, but as the part we're discussing here, are we coaching our supervisors? Not micromanaging, not looking over their shoulder every second, but like, hey, no, block this way, change this, do that. No, I'm saying let them execute, but then are we coaching them? Are we taking the time? Do we know them? Are we connected at the human level? And then are we coaching them? So what I want to, again, speak to your heart. If you're in the position to coach, you need to coach. If you're in the position to be coached, be coachable. Don't take it offensive. Colonel can coach me all the time. Colonel can be like, just like my previous boss said, hey, quit scaring people. You know, like just give me some honest, critical, constructive feedback. That's what I want out of our airmen in the Air Force and our airmen in this group, is to be coachable. If the Air Force comes out and says, hey, we're going to track all LORs, don't be like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. You just don't trust me. No, don't look at it that way. Remember when they took the PT test from us, sir? Oh my goodness, I remember that. And then we had people, that contractors come in and watch us test. That upset me. I didn't get mad at the people that are watching me test, right? There's a reason that we've gotten to the spot that we're getting to. What I want you to do is be in a position that you're already doing it. I'm not saying you're not, but if you're not, correct it, because you don't have a spot in the Air Force if you're not going to treat our airmen with dignity and respect, and that's all airmen. So if you can't get to that level, then it is time to move on. I hope people got their steel-toe boots on, because sometimes I will step on toes. So if you're not to that level and you can't get to that level, then you don't belong in the Air Force leading our airmen and having the privilege to lead our airmen, because it is a privilege, not a right. So anyway, make sure that we're coachable. So if the Air Force comes out with a policy or a process, you're like, cool, whatever. I'll mark here or mark there, because I know I'm already doing it the right way. I've already been coached. My heart is in the right spot. I know my airmen. You can go down the line with it. So anyway, don't want to belabor that point, but when we talk about next level actions or discussions, continue conversating at the squadron level. I want to encourage that, but conversations don't fix it. That exposes, helps us understand. So I just wanted to give them a little bit about, hey, what I see, what Chief Vaden sees as the next level is actually coaching and correcting and guiding, and then potentially removing, right? If you're a supervisor in a position, I'm not prescribing discipline, but if you're a supervisor in a position you can't get it right, that's on that squadron leadership team to say, hey, what are we actually getting accomplished here? We've talked a lot now, we've coached you and you're not listening. It's time to make a move. So not prescribing discipline, but yeah, if you can't get it in the right spot, then maybe we need to step away and take a look and re-engage. Any thoughts before we open it up to questions?
What you just talked about actually is the other two points of my compass. I talked about when I talked with the squadron commanders, teamwork. You talked about a team, coaching and coaching the team. You know, we have plenty of folks that, you know what, hey, you don't feel comfortable talking to me about it, come talk to someone else about it. Get their thoughts on, hey, how can I do this better? And the other one was training. That's my final one, is training. It's going to take repetition. It's going to take commitment. And when I say training with discipline. It can't be a one and done. Hey, I tried it. No one wants to talk to me. No one wants to let me listen. It's going to take training. It's going to take discipline to do this. And again, it's a starter, and it gives us that opportunity to grow and to move out. So I think, yeah. So
you're absolutely right. One last thing, I have stuff in my cargo pockets, all these pockets, these OCPs, they gave me more pockets to put stuff in. But something we had talked about before, and I know you agree with this, and we talk about culture, and I know that is almost a taboo word in some settings, right? But depending on where you're assigned. But when we talk about culture in a unit, in an organization, the first 10 minutes, I think, and okay, maybe it's the first 5, maybe it's the first 30, not getting hung up on the exact number, but the first 10 minutes in an organization can set the tone for your tour. It could be a civilian in the onboarding process, a new airman that walks in the door, a seasoned master sergeant. You can walk in the door, and I know we've all been to multiple units. Well, me and you've been to multiple units. Some of our airmen, this is their first duty station. You walk in the unit, and you get a taste real quick of like, okay, this team is locked in, ready to engage. They're doing the mission. And sometimes you can walk in and you're like, is this a military outfit or, what is going on here, right? I have not experienced that in any of our organizations. I think our organizations do a great job of setting the standard. So I just want to encourage the commanders, the command teams, in that first 10 minutes, I don't know if you do squadron orientation or if you do newcomers orientation. I'm not sure exactly how you do it, but continue to set that standard early, and like you said, sir, often, right? It needs to be only accepted standard is excellence, right? When it's not excellent and it's not, not taking care of people with dignity and respect and accomplishing the mission, General Slife, I'm sorry, I just thought of this. General Slife points out the standards, right? tell me where the standards are associated with the mission. And we talk about, and I would like your thoughts, sir, when I finish this thought, is about any of those types of things, banners, coins, things of that nature, that might not be inclusive of everyone. But, what is the standard tied to? Well, in this unit, to be a part of this unit, and this was an AFSOC thing, you got to do 100 push-ups. Why? Because you only want certain fit type of people or people with certain fitness levels? Is it actually tied to the mission? So I want you to think about that of all the different things that we have in our organizations, our standards, what's it actually tied to? Do we just say, oh, I'm sorry, that's just a standard. I don't know, figure it out, like shaving waivers, right? That is a sticking point for a lot of people. I've never done this, but I could do where, okay, well, the standard says, well, it's changed now, but a few months ago, just like, I don't know, the standard says this, I don't know, figure out how to shave, whatever, dude, and go on about it. Is that how we approach it? Do we sit and listen and understand where that individual's coming from? But yeah, so right before we open up for questions, thoughts on, those things, whether it be coins, some things that you might not even think about, but that we should take a look at.
Yeah, so we were talking about this earlier. I just read it I think it was on the Defense News or something yesterday, and Secretary Barrett's sent out direction and guidance on, what we need to do a sweep. We can do that now. We don't need to wait on anything. But look at our heraldry, look at the patches we have, look at the patches, the unofficial patches that I know float around out there, the unofficial coins, those things that are visible, the things that we can actually do now that may disrespect someone, that may make someone feel like they're being discriminated against, or just, just plain outright, it just doesn't make someone feel good because based upon race, based upon sexual orientation, based upon religion, based upon we can get rid of that. We can, we've got plenty of pictures of awesome B1s, awesome Air Force stuff. Our airmen doing great things. And we've got a culture. We've got our culture of, we got your six, and each squadron has their culture that they can rally around. But we can get rid of a lot of that. This is a tangible thing that we can do now. Go out and do some sweeps and look for that. And then just say, hey, we are not doing this. This is not what we want.
It's too easy to get rid of stuff that's not inclusive, and some people really, are attached to certain things. And that's where it goes back to what I said in the very beginning of reading the Disparity report. Why aren't you attached to it? Are you attached to it so much that you're willing to put another human being at a disadvantage? I'll give closing thoughts and then give you the last mic. What I want at the end of the day is for people everybody, first off, across all of our organization, I want it for the entire world, but like General Sly says, it points it out great, we can absolutely control our portion of the Air Force. I can't control what the wing does. I can't control what the maintenance support or the maintenance group does, what operations group, I can't do that. What I can do, though, is help, me and the boss can help set strategy, vision, and encourage and advise our team, our portion of the Air Force, if you will. You can do the same thing in your squadron, your section, your flight, whatever the case, wherever you're at, you can control that piece of the Air Force or influence that piece of the Air Force. So I really want you to do that. I want you to take it on. And when we talk about new year, new me, and I'm not making fun of that. There's a lot of people that get into a lot of different things at the beginning of the year, whether it's new PT regimen or whatever the case may be. I want us to be better humans. I can be a better human, right? And Chief Baz does her #BetterTogether. And we are better together. So we really need to rely on one another, but we have to get to know each other before we rely on one another. And I have heard the comment, sir, where people say, well, we're a warfighting organization. You're dadgum right, we are, right? I don't make any bones about that. We're not a coddling corporation. We are a professional organization, which is a profession of the arms, right? A profession of arms. So if you have that mindset, then I would also challenge, when's the last time you went and kicked indoors with somebody or ran convoy ops? Because I knew every one of my teammates, right? And so to say we're a warfighting organization, we don't have time to focus on this, you need to refocus, right? So 2021, let's start afresh, open hearts, open minds, and just get after this together, right? I know this is a lot easier said than done. Trust me, I understand that. I will be sending out some more emails, some invites a little bit later on to do some more panels or make those available. But also, when I send out the anonymous feedback, I know you got your own squadron level feedback system and processes, or at least I would hope you do. Don't be shy on those. If you want to tell me something, or if there's something that me and the boss are doing that doesn't check with what we've actually came out of our mouth or what we're saying or what we're advising, then you got to let me know that. Take advantage of those feedbacks as I send them out. So I am floored by how y'all handled 2020. I know there was a lot of stuff going on. I think my deployment to Afghanistan honestly was easier than what was going on here. So I want to commend you for how you served our nation in some of its most troubling times. Some people might even say some of the most troubling times that we've been through. I know in my lifetime we hadn't had a pandemic. And engagements of going on with terrorists and other things that we send bombers out to do, which we won't go classified on here. So I applaud you for how you've led, how you've taken care of each other. So I want you to hear, let's do it better. Not let's, hey, fix everything that's wrong, that I think the whole group is wrong. That is not the case at all. You are great. And I want us to take the next step. So, sir, over to you.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to echo a lot of, well, actually, I'm not going to repeat it because I'm just going to echo a lot of what Chief said. You know, he talked about war fighting, and we have an awesome organization. And when we do go to war, if we have to go to war, I'm going to trust that airman that's next to me with my life. And I'm going to start building that trust today. I'm going to start building that trust at the shop level. I'm going to start building that trust in any way I can, because you know what? When we have to do the stuff that we're asked to do, I want to be able to trust the airmen next to me, and we have amazing airmen. And so it's really been a pleasure to be able to talk with you, an honor to be able to talk with you. And I mean, best MSG in the world, obviously. Hoorah. And so we're going to do more of this. And we're excited about 2021. We'll talk later throughout the January, February. We're going to get out and get to see some of the squadrons and talk vision, strategy, awards, and recognize some folks. So we're very excited about that, but we're going to keep this discussion that we had today, we're going to keep it going. Absolutely. So with that, we'd just like to say thanks, Sergeant Heinrichs, for putting this together. Amazing. We're sitting in the studio here. When Chief talked to me about it, I thought we were going to have I was going to have a phone in front of my face, and it was, going back and forth like this.
It would have been without Master Sergeant Heinrichs. It would have been, sir.
Sergeant Heinrichs, awesome job. Just truly, truly awesome. Thank you. So with that, thanks to the MSG, and we'll see you guys around.